everybody to another episode of Pay It Forward. Today we're going to be talking about your COVID-19 impact statement. My name is Sameh Solomon. I run my Instagram channel and my YouTube channel called Dental Life. I am a second year dental student at AT still.
Hello everybody, my name is Fernanda. I'm a D2 at UCLA School of Dentistry. Here you can see my Instagram if you have any questions.
Hi, my name is Niveen and I am an incoming D1 at Western University. So follow me at 24 Crown on Instagram and I can answer any questions.
So please note that whatever information we provide you in these presentations, it's all from our personal experiences. So this is only a guide. It's not guaranteed that you'll get into dental school. So here we have some resources that I think will be helpful for you. So here we have the AADSAS official guide to dental schools. This is basically your Bible, Quran, Torah, whatever you believe in. And then it comes in different forms. So you can get the book we have over here, which is $40, or you can get the AADSAS Dental School Explorer, which is basically kind of a website or an app that you can use, which is $25, or you can get the bundle, which is both versions, and it's $50. Or you can also get the AADSAS Getting into Dental School. So AADSAS stands for the American Student Dental Association, and most dental schools in the nation, they have a specific chapter for that school, and you get a membership and you get different discounts for DET resources. Grad School Grades. So this is a new service. So it gives each school's admission stats, GPA, DET scores and all that, and prerequisites and whatnot. It also gives the clinical experience at that specific school, and it ranks them into 4 different categories, and it basically gives you everything in a table format, and you can switch like the order of them to organize it however you want. And it will give you multiple reviews that are written by dental students at that specific program. It's pretty cool because it gives you the pros and the cons, and these are written, like I said, by dental students at these programs. The membership, it gives you 12 months access for $50. They also provide important information on their Instagram page at Grad School Grades. So here you probably are familiar with this page by now. So for this presentation, we're going to go under my application, under your personal information, and then you're going to have 8 subsections. And out of these 8, we're going to focus today on the other information, which has the COVID-19 impact statement. As I have here, before starting your application, be sure to read the application instructions and follow them accordingly. So now we're going to talk about the COVID-19 impact. Disclaimer, this prompt should only be answered in 2,500 characters. It's not like your personal statement or disadvantage statement where it's 4,500 characters. So from the AADSAS portal, this is their prompt. So COVID-19 has broadly impacted the world in 2020. If you want, you could use this space to describe how COVID-19 has impacted your preparation for the application to dental school up to this point. Each dental school will determine how a response to this question will be considered as part of their admissions process. So you might consider these questions as you formulate your response. So it's going to be academic, professional, and personal.
So for academic, a lot of schools closed down, so we had to go to online classes. And for dental schools, that can be tricky because there are prerequisites where, especially labs, they do not want them to be online. However, I think from what happened, you had no control over it. Just explain the courses that were transitioned to being online, or if you have summer classes, or if you have classes in the fall that will be online, mention that so that they know it wasn't because you took them online because you preferred that method. It was because obviously of COVID that you had no other choice. And the next question for academic is, did you leave an academic program? So for instance, if your parents had to, quit their jobs or they were essential workers and you have a little sibling that needed your attention, you may have been forced to move back home for that reason, or if you were a commuter student, did you have to withdraw from a certain program to be able to take care of those responsibilities that otherwise were taken care of? And the next question for academic is, were the grades for your coursework, especially prerequisites, affected? And so that heads back on my first question. If they were moved to online, like I said, they particularly do not want labs to be taken online. So in that case, if that was one of the classes that you were taking or two of your classes, explain it, just mention it briefly so that they keep it in mind of why it was online, because they're going to be reviewing your whole application altogether and they may overlook when exactly that online course was taken. So emphasizing it won't hurt you since they are giving you the space to explain it. And then the next one was, for a lot of students, the DAT was canceled or postponed, further out than they would like. So that may delay your application. Sometimes I know students had to reschedule, and that's a lot of money too. So if it impacted you in how you studied, maybe you lost motivation because you weren't sure, when do I take it, when do I not? What are the, requirements now and the protocols in the testing center? The whole uncertainty could be an added factor to possibly not doing as well as you hope to do on the exam. Another thing is maybe the cost. Maybe you did want to reschedule again, but you weren't sure of the uncertainty and you were sort of forced to stick with your initial date that you had scheduled because you weren't sure if you can get another one. So that's another way that COVID could have impacted you. And then, did you lose the ability to interact with professors or advisors? So this is important in one that you may struggled with a course and now you weren't able to get the help that you would like from a tutor, from the professor, going to office hours. Two, if you wanted to have a letter of recommendation written by a certain professor, that may have been hindered because you may have planned to go to their office hours to get to know them this semester, and all of a sudden in March they closed down the schools. You could say, I didn't have the ability to get to know my professor like I had planned to for that letter. So in general, just explain how anything that you wanted to do, you couldn't do because of COVID, or maybe you felt a little bit more stressed. Schools and libraries are not open, so now you have to study at home. And for some people, that's really difficult, especially with if they live with their family. It's really hard to find a quiet space. So that may have affected your grades this semester, maybe the DAT, whatever it is, explain it, because all you can do is explain yourself, and then it's up to them on how they evaluate it.
For the professional, was your job paid or volunteer affected? So in this case, if you had a job as a non-essential worker and now these jobs have been terminated or laid off or whatever, and now you are jobless or are unemployed, I think that will affect you financially and how that might hinder your application from applying to a lot of schools or taking the DET on time. Also, in this case, talk about how you might have filed for unemployment and how that affected you, and how you maybe searched for a new job that is considered under the essential worker umbrella, something that might be out of your comfort zone so you can provide for your family. Was your shadowing experience shortened or modified? So I get this question a lot from pre-dental students on my Instagram blog, that a lot of them are struggling now to find shadowing hours because they were planning on shadowing right now if it wasn't for COVID happening, and now they can't anymore. So I'm going to be talking in a couple slides about what you can do to actually get solid shadowing hours. It's not going to be direct shadowing. It's going to be virtual shadowing per se, but it's still shadowing. It's still you learning, and it's the modification that they're asking for. In this case, they're trying to see how you can overcome hardships such as COVID, where your financial responsibility shifted or increased. So now, like, a lot of people are home 24/7. And just being home, that's kind of costly. How are you able to manage your finances if you were unemployed or your job basically laid you off or any of that. So I think that is something to talk about and explore if that affected you on a personal level.
Now, for the personal, one of the questions is, do you have to move out of the house or a dorm? It has been for a lot of college students that they have to move out of the dorms. A lot of them, maybe the families are not in state, they're out of state. So that whole movement and having to like move the furniture and all that kind of stuff, it is very difficult and costly. So make sure to talk about that. Were you impacted by travel out of the country? So a lot of them maybe were during the spring break, went to visit family, not necessarily within the United States, but maybe Korea or any of those high spots. And so from going there, that could definitely affect them when they come back, and they have to do the whole quarantine for 14 days. So make sure that you talk about that. Also, if you are in another state with your family, you have to come back. Maybe you had different hours, and so instead of taking a class at 8 a.m., you were taking it at 5 a.m. So that's something that could definitely affect you, which is an academic, but you should definitely talk about it. That you seek out volunteer opportunities that arose from the crisis. So this is mostly like trying to show your initiative and how you're flexible and resilient. And so make sure that you talk about this if you can. And if you haven't done it, there's still time to do it. It is something that will show good, especially if you help those dentists or doctors that are essential and need PPE, but it wasn't enough. So there has been a lot of examples. You can definitely look that up. And so do you help family members who were affected? So this is mostly if your parents were laid off, if your husband was laid off and both of you needed to work or minimize the costs, or maybe you're a mother and before your kids were in school, but now they're at home. So that means you have to be both a student and a teacher, and make sure that they're well and be a homemate. Make sure that you focus on those struggles. But like I said, it's the same as the disadvantage statement. You want to keep it positive and what you got out of it and how you were able to survive and thrive.
Also, to add to that, like for example, for the family, I know some pre-dental students that reach out to me. I know that they're from immigrant families, so I know that their parents don't speak English. So they took upon the responsibility for calling credit cards, home mortgages. If you talk about how you made all these phone calls and all that on behalf of your parents, that shows a responsibility, that shows initiative, that shows that you are basically trying to make ends meet and hopefully have them stay afloat during this pandemic. So these are my 2 tips. So here, this is how the previous slide looks like on the application portal, and that's how they have it structured. And as you guys see here, they only have 2,500 characters, but they also have under the other information section, they have the education interruption. They ask you, has your education ever been interrupted or affected adversely for reasons other than deficiencies in conduct, academic performance, or COVID-19? So in this case, if you are choosing to answer COVID-19, you will answer it in this prompt and you would say yes or no here. So don't double dip and say COVID-19 here and COVID-19 there. Make sure that you are specifically answering the question that is being asked, because that's what reading comprehension is for on the DET. If you can actually read and comprehend the prompt that's being put in front of you. So hopefully I saved a couple people with that. So now we're going to talk about the COVID-19 impact and how you should have a positive mindset approaching this application cycle. So here, this is the latest update from the ADA, the American Dental Association, from Dr. Chad Gahani. He basically talks about how COVID-19 pandemic affected the dental profession. He talks about how a lot of the dental offices closed down because they were deemed non-essential and they were open only for emergencies. He also mentions here that these are not just numbers, these are lives, your livelihoods, your practices, and your dreams. And this is basically at the end of the day, if it comes down to the numbers and your income to support your family. And at the end of this article, it talks about the road to recovery after everything gets back to normal, whatever normal is. So I really encourage you to keep up to date with all these ADA alerts, because it keeps you up to date with the profession. And you can talk about how Dr. Gahani mentioned in the previous newsletter that the dental profession should proceed this way, that way, that way. So the admissions knows that you as a pre-dent is keeping up with the profession that you're going to be committed to for the rest of your life. So that shows initiative. Also, I saw this on Instagram and I thought I should share it, because it basically says, after lockdown, remember who checked up on you, texted you, and supported you. They are your true friends. And I think that is not right, because during this time, no one owes you anything. We are in a global pandemic. And I think if you think that everything revolves around you in a global pandemic, then you need to have a sit down with yourself and actually rethink things, because that is a very negative mindset. And you should not have a negative mindset during a pandemic, or when you're trying to approach this cycle. You should approach it with a positive mindset that it's not just about you. You are not the only one that is affected by this pandemic. The entire world is affected by it. So just get out of your own bubble or shell and actually make something positive out of this pandemic. I'm going to go ahead and share a couple more tooth tips with you guys. So these are called continuing education CE courses. And during the pandemic, a lot of them that cost a lot of money are being offered for free. So I think as dental students or pre-dents, you guys should take complete advantage of this situation and actually talk about it in your application, how you use all of these that I'm going to talk about to your advantage, and how you use these as a supplement or as a replacement for the lack of shadowing hours, experiences, and all of that stuff. So Colgate has a lot of free CE courses that are available for you, and they have basically a library that you can browse through. And here we have Dr. Jacques Dillenberg, the inaugural dean of ATSU ASDO. And here he basically says the integrated healthcare is taking the I out of illness and replacing it with the we to achieve wellness. And I'm like, wow, that is like amazing. And that's what ASDO is about. It's all about whole person healthcare. So again, like they have a lot of speakers on there. So in this case, if you're applying for ASDO and ASDO is your number one, and you say that you actually enrolled in this CE course and you watched Dr. Jacques Dillenberg, then that kind of holds you favor for ASDO. And I would say maybe mention that for the supplementary application, not really your primary, but these are kind of like very strategic ways where you can cater to that specific school. Another resource that you can use is Implant Ninja by Dr. Ivan. So you guys should totally follow Implant Ninja on Instagram. Dr. Ivan posts a lot of crazy cool cases, and I enrolled in this implant surgery course that is being offered to dental students and pre-dents. I was watching it with one of my pre-dental friends, and Dr. Ivan shows you how implants should be placed. It's a full-on course, and you actually leave the course like knowing something about implants. And it's kind of interesting because nowadays dental schools are barely getting on the bandwagon of actually teaching implants in a school setting, where it used to be separate courses back in the day. Now Dr. Ivan partnered up with multiple dental schools across the country, and now they are using his material and it's being integrated in their programs. So it's a pretty solid resource, and it's free. Here, dental care is provided by Crust and Oral-B, and here they have an article that talks about aerosols. And now we know that COVID is aerosolized. This is information that you need to know from now on, and it's going to affect how we treat patients, because dental professionals have one of the highest risks for contracting any aerosolized pathogens because of our close proximity with the oral cavity and the instrument we use, such as the handpiece and whatnot. So here, weathering the COVID-19 financial storms in dentistry, this is offered on a daily basis by Dr. David Rice from Ignite DDS, and he has amazing content on there. I think you guys should check that out. Aspen Dental is a corporate dental office, and here they talk about the interim therapeutic restorations, the ITR, in times of coronavirus. So this is very specific to what's going on right now. So ITR, for those that don't know what ITR is, it's a temporary restoration that can be placed for the time being until definitive treatment plan is put into place. So that way we can minimize the aerosolization with using our handpieces and all that. So PDS is also another corporate office, and they have something called PDS University. In this CE course, they talk about CAD/CAM design. So this is basically digital dentistry, and a lot of dental school and just the dental profession as a whole is moving towards digital dentistry. And I think that's something that you guys should know ahead of time before applying, because some schools integrated CAD/CAM machines in their curriculum, such as ASDO, and I know Western, and I think UCLA as well. So basically, as a whole, all these resources, and then if you Google continuing education courses for COVID-19, you will find a plethora of resources that you can. These are just examples to kind of get you thinking. But one of my favorite ones is the IG Life, the Instagram Life. So if you don't have Instagram, or if you're anti-social media, I encourage you to hop on the bandwagon that is social media, because there's a lot of great dentists that utilize this platform where they showcases, talk about how COVID is affecting them, tell you what they're doing to kind of keep up with all the craziness that is going on right now, what their game plan is once they open their offices back up again. And it's an amazing resource, and people invite other dental professionals as guests. You can have 2 people on there on an IG Live talking about implants, or talking about how COVID is affecting their office and their patients, and how we can come back from this stronger than ever. So check that out, and everything is free.
My 2 tips about COVID-19. So yes, you want to say all the struggles you have been going through, but like we said with the disadvantage statement, you want to keep it positive. And these are some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself when you're brainstorming. So did you do anything to help others during this pandemic? This could include essential workers, your family. It can go to all levels, even dental schools or like dentists. Also, do you do anything to improve yourself? And this is kind of going back to the previous slide, how you keep it up with dentistry. Other ways that if you don't like to watch stuff or like read stuff, maybe sometimes when you're working out, you hear podcasts. There's a lot of dental podcasts out there that you can definitely use to not only talk about dentistry, but there's very good ones for like students. So when you get accepted or when you go to interviews, you will be able to talk about some of the things that a dental student experiences. On top of this, you want to explain how you took care of your mental health. The reason is right now, AADSAS, which is the American Student Dental Association, is taking big steps for the dental students to be well, not only physically, but emotionally, mentally, overall. And so this is a good thing to show them that you will be fine during dental school to some extent. And if this were to happen, hopefully not, while you're going to dental school, you will be able to know how to take care of yourself. And they don't have to worry about you because you're resilient. So this is an opportunity for you to go over it. One of the main things is that dentists roll with the punches. And what that means is it's not only during this pandemic. Yes, this pandemic is bringing the worst of some people, but let's focus on the good things about dentists. Day to day, they have to treat patients, and a lot of times, like Niveen explained, that you will change your treatment planning. Maybe a patient is anxious and they don't want to go over it, so you might have to sedate them, and you have to work with things that are out of your comfort zone. Oh, sometimes you will say, okay, this cavity is very simple. Then when you go in, you're like, oh no, there's a lot of complications with this. How am I gonna deal with this? So this is an opportunity for you to explain to them that when you become a dentist, you have the soft skills, because dental school, they don't have time to teach you soft skills. You get those before. And last but not least, like I said, be resilient but creative. Show them, even if it's your hobby, you want to show them who you are. And that's important.
So I agree a lot with what Fernanda said. And some of my tooth tips include, addressing why you stopped certain activities, so that way it doesn't seem like you're taking this opportunity to just relax. It is a good thing to also relax and show maybe you learned how to do yoga at home, and that's something you're gonna continue doing, down the line. So that's not always a bad thing to say, hey, I took time for myself and I, started eating better, working out and such. But at the same time, don't make it seem like you are not doing anything. One thing that you could possibly do is tutor kids online, because I would have done that, in person, but now because there's so many kids at home, you could say, I help tutor kids. If you didn't have the opportunity to do that, you could also, come up with a lot of online things, helping high school students write resumes for college, or helping other high school kids, apply to colleges. So it's a lot of things that you already know how to do that you could help people with. And it shows that you're still willing to help even in a pandemic. One of my tips is, did it change your perspective of dentistry, whether it's hygiene or becoming a dentist, in the sense that the PPE has changed now? You have to be a lot more careful of what you do, and that's difficult. Like, you can listen to dentists right now saying, I'm not looking forward to starting soon back in the office, because it's so much gear that you have to wear just to be able to do a composite or teeth cleaning. And that's difficult, because you don't have to go in a career where you have to wear all that, but this is a change that you're gonna have to adapt to. And another tooth tip is the overhead costs of materials. So a lot of practice owners had to think about, how can I get the new protection for my employees? And the whole idea of integrity came into play, because there were offices that were still taking in patients even after it was recommended that only emergency procedures get treated. So in that sense, are you going to be that dentist that continues to put your associates and your patients in danger by continuing to treat patients? Or are you going to be the dentist that's going to wait and spend extra on the correct PPE to ensure that your patients and your staff are safe? So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind as a future practice owner. A lot of people say, oh, I want to own my own practice. These point of views are things that I started thinking about even for myself, how it will be in the future. The reasons why we are telling you about all this information that is available online is because it shows, are you still willing to learn about the profession? Obviously, you can't go into clinic right away, especially shadowing, because of the amount of people that need to be in the office. So that's one way where you could say, hey, I'm still trying to learn about the profession. I'm thinking about all the PPE that now dentists and hygienists have to wear. Put into perspective, like, wow, I have to take into consideration like a whole nother thing about the career that you didn't think about before.
So something to add to the overhead costs, I want to make sure that the pre-dents that are watching this, please don't take it personally if you reach out to the dentist that promised you to have you shadow them and now is going back on their word because of the overhead costs. Take that into consideration. Think about it. That office has been closed for a couple months, and now the dentist has to ramp up all their PPEs and stock up. Now the N95 mask used to be like 5 cents. Now it's $5 a piece. And now they have a lot of counterfeits that are made in India and China or wherever. And you have to actually get it from a trustworthy brand, and these are always expensive. So if you're a pre-dent looking for shadowing experiences and you can't find any, just be understanding and put yourself in the dentist's shoes. That's the whole point. We're trying to get you there, and just have some mercy on them, cut them some slack, because they have a lot to deal with and it's all a new territory for everybody involved. So now the CHIC status. So the AADSAS portal pushed back the submission date to June 16th, 2020. And I think that's good. It gives you about a week or two to not be late. And I really recommend people to submit their applications ASAP. So that way the rolling admissions gets rolling and your name is in the system right away. And also, as I always recommend, make sure that you download your application so that way you have something to look at in preparation for your interviews.
I agree. That would be for the schools that have open file, and of course this will be discussed a little more in depth in another video. But definitely know everything they're writing, because they're gonna ask you like from there. I actually got a couple of questions like that. When I went to my interviews, I would try to get a physical copy and also send it to myself to my email. So the night before, I will go over my application and read it over. Even like maybe when you're over in the plane, you can read it over. So when they ask you about this type of stuff, you remember, oh yeah, I wrote this, so I'm gonna reply to this.
One thing I did, maybe this is just like a promotional kind of thing, but I had my portfolio and I just printed like things that they had emailed us for the interview, just to show, you know, like the logo of the school, and it was that school. Make sure that you don't have other schools' information or logos showing, in case you open up your portfolio to take notes and it's like, they'll see that. Obviously these are the little details, but it doesn't take much time to get those things organized. Another thing was for me, reading it on the plane. Definitely read your personal statement, your disadvantaged and your experiences, because I had the same thing actually at AT still, and I was caught off guard because I thought I knew my application back and forth, but it was actually a question from their secondary application, their supplemental, and they just said, you mentioned this, so how would you handle it in dental school? And I was like trying to recall what I wrote, but that was AT still. Not every school was that specific and spent that much time getting to know you. Going over the application on the way to the interview not only helped me like remember everything that I had written, but also when I got asked questions, I was able to articulate myself better, because obviously I spent so much time on the application. The interview is always different because you're on the spot, you don't know what you're getting asked. So it's good because you already have these sentences in your head that you can throw out when you get asked questions.
Going off of what Niveen said, so let's say I had an interview at Loma Linda, and prior to that interview, I attended one of their preview days, and they gave me a pencil or they gave me a pen and let's say a notepad or something. I would take that and put it in my portfolio, and then I'll be taking notes during the interview. Same thing with AT Still, UCLA, any school. Like if you put in the effort to go to that preview day or pre-dental day and get something, a memorabilia from that school, show it off, and that speaks volume. Just make sure you don't have other schools in there with you. So again, make sure you download your application as a whole. So this is your environmental factors. And as always, best of luck, and remember to pay it forward. This has been a pleasure for me to make these videos for you guys. And this is how I keep my positive mindset, is giving back to everybody and helping you guys out, because I know it has been a difficult time for everybody and you are not alone.
I personally understand how it is to try to maybe fight against the waves. And so in this case, it's the wave of the pandemic. Don't look at it that way. It is better to collaborate, and for that reason, it's important to pay it forward. And that's the reason I wanted to do it. And I know the disadvantage statement is a very important way to you to show it. And I know you will rock it. So yeah,
thank you.
Pay it forward.
For me, I'd like to pay it forward because I love teaching, honestly, and just sharing these tips and tricks basically that I was able to learn from others, to pass them forward because they helped me. So, you know, why not help someone else?
Thank you, ladies, for your time and your efforts. This has been an amazing session. And if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'm available all over social media, literally. Reach out, don't be scared. I'll try to answer your questions as soon as possible. And have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
There's so much strength in you and me.